WQMV, AM 1060 and 93.5 FM, Austin Taylor with you. Appreciate you tuning in on this Saturday afternoon where once again we are doing our Candidates Forum. And we will begin here in a moment. Helping me out this afternoon is the editor of the News Democrat, Ward Phillips. Hi, Ward.
Good evening.
He's so formal. He shows up in a tuxedo and everything, I tell you what, so I like that. We're going to be basically talking to the candidates who are running for office, both on the county level and on the state level this afternoon. We'll begin here in just a moment with the State Representative Jay Reedy. And the format is basically this. We'll give each candidate about 2 minutes to introduce themselves, let you know what office they're running for, and then we'll be asking them a question. We'll give them 90 seconds to answer that question. If they are on there with their opponent, and they feel like they need to follow up on something that their opponent said, we'll give them additional 1 minute after that. And with Jay here, since his opponent was unable to be with us today, Jay will be on his own, so he'll basically be introducing himself. We'll throw a few questions his way, and then we'll let him conclude. At the end of the question session, we'll give you about a 3-minute opportunity to sum things up and make your pitch and like that. So we do appreciate all the candidates showing up this afternoon. We also appreciate everyone who showed up for the audience and listening as well. We know we have a number of individuals who are tuned in, both on the radio and streaming us live. We appreciate that very much and being with us. We'll start things off. State Representative Jay Reedy. Jay is running for re-election. This is your second term, right, Jay?
Third term.
Third term.
Looking for
You're
three.
getting old, man. You've been here for a long time, haven't you? Jay, take a moment to introduce yourself, if you would, and then we'll get into a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. Okay?
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to come out to speak here at Waverly High School, also to Humphreys County. And it's interesting enough, the radio station does reach up into Houston County, where I'm from, in the small town of Erin. Small town, farm boy, grew up in Payette, Idaho, joined the Army, traveled the world, ended at Fort Campbell, and decided I needed more education, so I took night classes from Austin P and finally figured out, yes, I could be taught more, so I got out, went full-time. And at that location, I found my wife from Houston County, so now you know my epitaph. So with that, 3 kids, really enjoy southern living, southern hospitality, and it's been perfect, in my opinion, for raising a family. And so with that, 3 of my kids, one just graduated from college at Austin P, following his mother and I's footsteps. And then my oldest daughter just finished Houston County High School, and she's going off to Austin P for the nursing program. So I'm excited about that, and the youngest one is still in high school. But with that, we have a farm. I'm a small business owner, Christian. We attend the Church of Christ there in Erin. Enjoy serving in the House, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve because there was many things that concerned me that was going on at the federal and state level. And so with that, I decided to just throw my name in the hat. Well, you folks voted me in, so here we are for a third term. Once again, appreciate it. There's a lot of things to do still in the state of Tennessee, and I do have an open door policy, like everyone should have, as well as awesome staff in Nashville that is available all year long. So when I'm not there, there's still somebody in my office answering the phones, answering the emails, still having those meetings, even though we're out of session. They call it a part-time politician job, but as you see, there's no part-time thing about it. But anyway, I appreciate being here.
See, Jay's well-versed with me throwing up a signal. He knows exactly when, oh, Dean wants me to wrap it up. Very good. Jay, a couple of questions for you. Let's start off with the past term. You had 2 sessions that you were in this past term up there. What do you feel like is the major accomplishments you have achieved in this past sitting in with our representative?
Probably the best accomplishment for me, and it's interesting, in the House, we're only allowed 15 bills per year for a total of 30. So a session or a term lasts for 2 years. So what we don't get finished the first year, we can go and hopefully get it across the finish line the second year. So with that, I did accomplish 14 good bills. One was actually a resolution. But the most beneficial one and the biggest struggle was the anti-sanctuary city bill. And with that, there was so many negative things come out about that. But my issue with any, Nashville last summer tried to create a sanctuary city, and we said no, we are not hiding illegal criminal aliens in the state of Tennessee. So we accomplished that. With that, we have put all the other states on notice. If you've got a criminal illegal alien, they better beware if they come to Tennessee.
Jay, looking ahead, if we decide to send you back up to Nashville one more time, you've got to look at the upcoming 2 years. You know where we are as a state. Unprecedented improvement. We have a lot of numbers that are improving both in employment and other areas, but there's going to be challenges coming up as well. What do you see as the biggest challenge coming up for whatever representative we send up for the next 2 years?
It's a difficult question because it's what I see. The major issue is still education, and my opinion is continuing to throw more dollars at a failing, Tennessee Ready, the failed testing and all of that. More money is not going to fix it. We've got to put our minds, the right people in place for leadership to do something for education, K through 12, but also higher education. We are spending unbelievable amounts of money on education. And with that, it was the Tennessee Promise. We finally finished the first group of kids that went for 2 years, and it was only like a 34% success rate. And you would think, if we're calling it free education, that number should be higher. Now, on the national average, we are higher, but with that, other states do not have the Tennessee Promise like we have in place.
Jay, one of the things that keep coming up in the opponents or the candidates running for governor is the fact that legislative experience is important. And the same thing I think is true as far as the state legislature who we send up there. Do you feel like, as going up there and representing us for another 2 years, do you feel like you've made enough inroads with your fellow representatives that you can get the things accomplished that you're wanting to do and the bills through that you feel are important for this district?
And that's an appropriate question, because my very first year I got there and I had some ideas for legislation, but then it kind of hit me like a wall. Some of your House and Senate members, they're climbing that political ladder. They want to be governor. And so with that, the new guy, I felt like, well, they'd have you help them with the bill and then throw you under the bus. And with that, so I had to search for some outside folks that knew about the legislative process, somebody that I could go to and ask for advice. Now, with that being said, I made a lot of inroads. There's a trust factor. You got to trust the lobbyist who brings you good information and then try to digest that, because you as a legislator do not have enough time to go research all of the issues and to make an informed decision. So with that, it was paramount, and in the last 4 years I have made great inroads, but now we're in a situation, we've got 30-some odd House members that are not coming back. So you start that, it's kind of like being at high school. You got a freshman class and a senior class, and then now you got to start, well, with me I went from freshman almost to a senior immediately. So with that is building up those relationships with the new members, try to figure out what kind of support they will give you at the same time you can give them to pass common sense legislation. With that said, at times we look at legislation and then I always ask the question, it's a good idea, but will the bill or will this law be enforced? And if it doesn't make sense to do that, why put extra laws on the book?
Jay, one more question for you, and we'll let you kind of sum things up like that if you don't mind. You mentioned earlier that you were able to get through a sanctuary or anti-sanctuary city bill through the House. Is there another piece of legislation that you feel rather proud of that you were able to accomplish this past session that you'd like to remind us in the district about?
Well, quickly, it's out of the 14, this anti-sanctuary city bill was one. The other was the Teachers' Bill of Rights, giving more teachers in the classroom respect that they deserve. Another one was getting the sexual predators out of our classrooms. So those teachers' aides, all of that. We are putting into a process when we find out that there's this person in the classroom, we'll register them on a national database so they won't just disappear out of Tennessee and then they show up in Kentucky. That was the second one. I was the one that carried the industrial hemp bill, House Bill 1164. Matter of fact, I grew hemp on my farm, had anybody, everybody to come out, look at it, smell it, taste it, whatever you wanted to do. And, you know, fuel fiber food comes out of industrial hemp, and it was quite proud. The Commissioner of Agriculture, Jay Templeton, his deputy commissioner came out to the farm, looked at it, and matter of fact, that was last year. This year, we had a bunch of our farmers, not only the dairymen losing business, but also our tobacco farmers. And so the Department of Agriculture called me and said, hey, what do you think about opening up you have to have a permit, opening up the permitting process again for 15 days. I said, great. We've got to put our farmers back to work and give them more options. We did that. 500 more permits were sold, so across the state, we are way behind the power curve with Kentucky, North Carolina, but very proud of that legislation because we are really doing some great things with it.
Well, Jay, again, we appreciate very much you being with us today and taking time out of your schedule. We know you're busy and you're trying to make it to another engagement this afternoon. So let's do this, and we'll give you 3 minutes. Just summarize and make your final pitch, and we'll wrap things up for you. Again, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, well, thank you once again for having me. It's an exciting time, as well as kind of a crazy election cycle, and we see that a lot of good people running for office, and then a lot of hateful things are being said, and it's kind of shameful. I call myself a Christian. I said, I'm not getting into this mudslinging and dirty politics. And that's what I wish everyone would do, is stick to the facts. Tell me what you're going to do for our county, our state, our federal government. Don't give me a laundry list of your opponent. And I wish everyone would kind of take that advice that I have taken ever since I was elected. Sometimes you can't avoid the negative stuff coming from some opposing forces who don't like your opponent for whatever reason. But with that, you can take it to the bank. I'm still working on the education issues. Matter of fact, something else that came up from the local farmers was stream bank stabilization, and it was interesting talking to the Department of Agriculture, and I said, okay, the property belongs to me, but the water belongs to Tennessee. They said, well, that's right. And I said, when your water runs through my property and tear it up or destroys property, is the state coming in to fix it? They said, no. And so with that, we're still having that conversation. I'm having it with Farm Bureau, the Department of Agriculture, and matter of fact, some of the wildlife conservation groups, because siltation, as we see down at Pebble Island Marina, all of a sudden you can't get a boat in and out of those locations because of all the siltation. So I continue to work on that. And I guess I need to back up and say, I am on the Ag Committee in the House as well as the Education Committee. My wife's a school teacher, and when I told her last legislative session that's the first committee I'm going to ask for is education, she said, well, you're crazy, because education is tough. And it has been, but it's been a good fight, and if I'm not willing to fight for education for our kids, for our family, then who will? So with that, I will continue that fight.
Well, Jay, again, we appreciate very much you taking the time out and coming out and being with us and like that. And again, good luck in the campaign, and be careful today when you're on the road, if you would.
Thank
you're
you very
listening to WQMV AM 1060 and 93.5 FM. We're going to take a moment out, and when we come back, we'll have State Senator Kerry Roberts and his opponent Wade Monday with us on today's forum. Back in about 90 seconds.
School auditorium for the WQMV Candidates Forum, live here at the high school. You still have time to get down if you'd like to come join us. Next on our agenda is State Senator Kerry Roberts and his opponent, Wade Monday, also a candidate for that same office. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
If you would, we'll start with you, Kerry. You're our incumbent in this particular seat. Would you introduce yourself very briefly, and then we'll allow your opponent to do the same thing.
Thank you, Ward. My name is Kerry Roberts, and I am married to my wife, Diane, who's out in the audience. I have 3 children. We're about ready to send 2 to college, so keep me in your prayers, and we'll have 1 still at home. After the redistricting was done in 2012 and I came here to Humphreys County for the first time, the thing that struck me was how many people were surprised that a state senator would come to Humphreys County, because not probably since you'd had a state senator from here, had a state senator paid much attention to the county. And people asked me, they said, well, if you get elected, will you keep coming back to the county, or are you going to forget us? And we have kept coming back to the county over and over again. We've spent our spring break here 2 years out at the marina. We've stayed in people's homes. We've been all throughout the county. We've eaten in a lot of the restaurants, and we truly consider Humphreys County to be our second home. Many of you have heard us say that before. So we've come back over and over again, and it's just a pleasure to be part of the Humphreys County family. It's a pleasure to represent you, and I say thank you to all of you for making us feel so at home. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. We appreciate that very much. Wade, Monday is running against Kerry. We got a primary, of course, vote up first to be November before their election will be decided. But Wade, take it. Well, you've been no stranger. You've been on the radio with us here before. We appreciate you coming back today to be with us for the forum. Would take a moment and just introduce yourself in case some of our listeners haven't had the chance to hear from you before.
Well, thank you for the invitation, Dean. Thank you, Ward. Thank you to everyone for being in attendance, and for everyone that's listening. Thank you, Senator Roberts, for being here. I really appreciate the back and forth that we've had. We've been on television even before I decided to run for this office together, and so we've gotten to know each other quite well. I'm originally from Gallatin, Tennessee, but I now live in Robertson County in Springfield, where my grandfather was a sharecropper, and you'll hear that pretty regularly on the campaign trail. It's that history of hard work that I'm very proud of. He was a sharecropper who worked really hard to raise his family. My father, when he was 15 years old, went out to go work the rows with him, and they taught me about hard work. And my father joined the Marine Corps, was fortunate to get out of that type of farming, and he was able to raise our family. I was able to go to college, first-generation college graduate. I thought about entering the ministry, and was a minister in the Church of the Nazarene for a while. Went to Vanderbilt Divinity School, earned my Master's of Divinity. Now I serve as the executive director of a nonprofit organization, Tennessee Justice for Our Neighbors. We help people fleeing persecution around the world be resettled here with their families in Middle Tennessee to call that place home. I'm running for the state Senate because I've heard the exact opposite from some families in Humphreys County, that they still haven't seen their state senator. It's a big district, it's a big county. People want to know who their state senator is. They want to know that he's been available. Senator Roberts has not been available to everyone. On top of being unavailable to people in Humphreys County, he voted against Medicaid expansion. That's a single issue that could really change lives, add jobs to this area, and make a difference for the people bringing tax dollars back home. That's why I'm running, but I appreciate you all being here. Thank you.
Wade, Kerry, since we began with you with the introductions, we'll go to Wade here with the opening question and like that. And remind you do have a 3-minute period at the end to wrap things up before you have anything particular. Wade, let's start off with a very simple question that most people want to know. Anytime someone goes through the process of putting their name on a ballot, put their name out there, and then get the opportunity to see how many people actually vote for them, there has to be a reason behind that. So as briefly and distinctly as you can, why don't you point out what your primary reason was for putting your name on the ballot and running for the Democratic primary this time around?
Yeah, at an early age, I was interested in politics, interested in the way we have a system of government that we get to choose for ourselves. And I'm very proud of America for having that form of governance. I wanted to be a part of the process from a very young age, and I wanted to provide a contrast. It's not serving anyone if there's just a one-sided argument. I don't see enough contrast in our state legislature. I don't see enough people with opposing viewpoints and who can disagree respectfully. And as I think Kerry, Senator Roberts, and I have shown, is that we can disagree respectfully and that we can have opposing sides to an argument. I firmly believe that we should expand Medicaid. I firmly believe that we should support teachers and make sure that schools like this are filled with quality educators, quality students who have a bright future ahead of them.
Kerry, going for your first re-election after being elected 4 years ago. You know what it's all about. You've been up there on the Hill. You've got to put up with everybody calling you and asking you and poking you for things like that. Why have you decided to put your name out for re-election? Why do you want to run for a second term?
Well, there are a lot of things in Tennessee that we think are going right, but we certainly don't feel like the job has been finished. And I think when you look at things that take place, there's always more that you can do. When you see Tennessee's unemployment, for example, it is at historic lows, but can you make it even lower? When you see that we've got a record number of people graduating from high school, it's still not 100%. When we see a record number of high school graduates going to college, it's still not 100%. So we have so many good things that are going on, but we think there's unfinished business, and we want to continue that.
Boy, if either of y'all decide to use your full time, let me know. I appreciate it very much. Nothing like being concise. I like that. Can't beat it all. All right, Carrie, back to you with a question. Looking at your first 4 years, there was a number of key issues that came up that were, in many cases, met with either applauds or hisses and boos from constituent people inside and outside your district. Looking back over your previous 4 years, what do you feel is the key legislation or key issues that you had to deal with and that you felt the Senate did a good job of dealing with during that 4-year period?
Well, one of the things that we wanted to do was to find a way to make health care more affordable for people. And I think one of the key pieces of legislation whose significance will be known as time passes is allowing for direct primary care in Tennessee. It's a concept that's new to a lot of people, but it allows a doctor to just practice medicine without an insurance company interfering or without the government interfering. It's kind of what I call good old-fashioned medicine. So a doctor can opt to leave that world of constant paperwork, and they can say, you're just going to pay $15, $20, $25 a month, whatever it might be, and you can come to my clinic and get unlimited health care, unlimited primary health care, similar perhaps to having a gym membership when you can go work out anytime you want. So that is a very significant piece of legislation. It's slow coming out of the gate because there are a lot of people that maybe they don't know about it, or they have to get some critical mass before they can do it. But I think that we're going to see over the next 10, 15, 20 years that was a very significant piece of legislation.
We're going to go over here to Wade, if you don't mind, and what we'd like to just kind of rephrase the questions a little bit. You've had an opportunity to sit back and to look at the last term for the Senate. Obviously, you wouldn't be running if you didn't feel like you could have done something different, or you felt like something should have went another way. Can you pick out one key issue and describe or to talk about what you would have done a little differently if you had been there? Go ahead.
Not surprisingly, I would have voted for Medicaid expansion. That would be $4.5 billion of federal tax dollars that we've already paid in that would be coming back into our state. That would equate to 500 jobs in Humphreys County and Dixon County that are secured, 300,000 Tennesseans who have health insurance, including 35,000 veterans who are not currently eligible for VA health insurance. And I think rather than doing old-fashioned medicine, we need to recognize that medicine has advanced far beyond what the ordinary American is able to afford. Medicine is very complicated, but trying to save your child's life, trying to save your family member's life isn't covered by primary care. It's covered by emergency medical care if you don't have insurance. That burden falls back on us, the taxpayers. A more effective way of doing that, it's not perfect, but it is good. I don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. I would have voted for Medicaid expansion.
Gary, I tell you what I'm going to do. We'll come back to you simply because this twice he's brought up Medicare expansion on you. I'm sure that some of our listeners out there aren't exactly clear and don't follow it as close as I do up on the Hill about what he's exactly referring to. If you would take a moment and just give him a counterpoint, if you would, for that particular thing. Take 90 seconds.
Oh, I don't think I can do it in 90 seconds, but I'll give it a go for the shortened version. You have to put this in context, and there's a tug of war between liberals and conservatives over Medicaid. And the liberals want, their end goal is for government to pay for everybody's health care. And the conservatives want to see this, health care being delivered by the free market. So when liberals are in charge, Medicaid tends to expand. And then when conservatives are in charge, they try to rein it in, but it's really hard to cut it back because then you're taking health insurance away from people. So when Obama was president, one of the ways that he wanted to expand Medicaid was to encourage all of the states to expand their Medicaid population, and they dangled federal dollars in front of them to get them to try to do it. But I would submit, and I would argue, that the 30-some states that have done it, you have almost 30 states that regret it, because the experience was this. If you said that you had 200,000 people who needed this insurance, there ended up being 300, 350, or 400,000 who actually enrolled. And at the end of the day, here's the outcome. You have working age, able-bodied individuals who are receiving health care from the federal government, or I should say delivered through the state, through TennCare. And then people who need services can't get those services. And we have to look no further to the experience of Kentucky, where they've taken away services because they can't afford it, or to Arkansas, where they haven't given teachers their raises because of the expenses of Medicaid expansion. So I think it was a good call, and I think when all was said and done, we helped the most people by doing it this way.
Wade, next question goes to you. On a number of occasions, even in your opening statement, you felt like the district has not been represented. So we'll give you the opportunity to expand on that. Why do you feel, and what examples can you give us of where this district has not been represented over the last 4 years?
Yeah, I watched in committee earlier this General Assembly of Senator Roberts and a number of Republicans, and let me just say, I am a Democrat, but I side with Republicans on a number of things. I want to work across the aisle. But I watched a committee where they were debating a bill where a woman who had been a victim of domestic violence was, the legislator who had proposed the bill was asking that she have 8 days paid leave so that she can get her life in order. I worked at an overnight domestic violence shelter called Safe Haven for a while. I saw women whose lives were wrecked by domestic violence. They needed much more time to get their lives in order, to get into a shelter, to make sure that their children were safe from violence, to get an order of protection. I watched every Republican on that committee pass on that bill. Now, they don't have to support it. They can have meaningful and thoughtful debate on it. No one gave it a second to debate that bill. Meanwhile, there are victims of domestic violence who could have been helped by a bill of that sort. There was also a bill, 10-care work requirement, that Senator Roberts was very positive about. I think he even sponsored it. That 10-care work requirement is not a conservative idea to me. That is not small government. That's paperwork for poor people. And there are poor people throughout this district who are burdened by that. And so that's another reason why I'm running. That's another contrast between us.
All right, we appreciate that very much. Kerry, the committee he's referring to is one that you sit on.
And I was there.
And so I
have a different perspective of that.
So I tell you what, why don't you just give a counterpoint to what he said there, and we'll kind of see where that goes.
Well, when you're not sitting on a committee and you present a bill, you're not able to make the motion or the second. So this bill was presented by Senator Yarbrough, who does not sit on that committee. His Democrat counterparts on the committee are Senator Harris and Senator Kyle. Just inexplicably, he ran the bill when Senator Kyle got up and left the room. There was a second. When she came back, she leaned over to Senator Harris and to me and said, "What happened to Yarbrough's bill? Where is he? You know, why is he not running it?" And Lee said to her, just said, "He ran it while you were gone. You missed it." So that's, you know, here's a bill that the National Federation of Independent Business, who represents small business owners, opposed. It's a bill that the legal community said, well, not all the legal community, obviously. I think Wade would differ with that, but said that we already have protections and opportunities in place for people to take time off. So, you know, for whatever reason, Senator Yarbrough ran that bill when his second had left the room. And I have no explanation for why he chose to do that, but he knew at that point that that was going to be the outcome. But, you know, sometimes people present bills to make a political statement, not because they want a policy discussion.
All right. And like I said, you were in the room, we weren't, so that worked pretty good. Do you have something? No. Oh, Ward always says things over here, so I was writing down. I'm like, oh, he's got a question. So sorry about that. Kerry, back to you with a question here before we start to look at winding things down with you two. We have to take a look at the next 4 years. Yeah, I appreciate the work, and I'm sure your constituents appreciate the work that you've done over the last 4 years, but we have to look ahead at the next 4. And those always have their own independent challenges. Nothing stays the same. Looking ahead, and looking particularly in the next session, which you're going to be in, what do you see as the major challenge for legislatures and for the state of Tennessee overall?
Well, before I answer that, I do want to say, when Wade mentioned that, I hadn't given a lot of thought to that since the legislation, so that's my recollection of how it happened. I suppose somebody can look back at the tape and see if that's exactly what happened, but I am almost 100% confident that that was the bill that he's referring to. Now, with respect to moving forward, I think we have a lot of work that we still want to do, because we've still got some of our rural counties are not experiencing the success of some of the other counties in Tennessee. And one of the things that the governor has done with support of the Tennessee General Assembly is to have a lot of rural initiatives to try to help our rural counties, for example, with the industrial development. You know, you can't bring a business to a county if you don't have a place to bring them. So when we look at Humphreys County, we work with the Industrial Development Board, we work with the county mayor's office to try to help them get site selection done, get these sites perked and ready to go, and get them inventoried on the state Economic and Community Development website, so that when we do have an employer that wants to come to Tennessee, we have the opportunity to make a really good match and to see that business go into one of our rural counties. Now, I will say, though, we've gone from almost 15% unemployment in January of 2010. You remember those days? It was 14-some%. We're down to 3.9 here in Humphreys County today. So a lot of good things have happened here in this county.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Wade, let's go with the same question right back to you. You have to look ahead. You're asking to go up there for 4 years. You're going to have to look at what challenges and what emphasis you feel like you're going to place during that 4-year term. So if you would take your 90 seconds, give us an idea of what you see as the major challenge and how you deal with it.
I think we need to look at the next 4 years, but I think we also need to position ourselves for the next 20 years. And when we want to attract jobs, we need to ask ourselves, do we want to attract the jobs that are automated, or the ones that put people in those seats doing those manufacturing jobs or doing high-skilled jobs? What my opponent, what Senator Roberts has voted for and a number of Republicans have voted for, is a tax credit for automated manufacturing. What I think we need to do is need to promote those small businesses that do encourage actual people taking actual jobs. I think we also need to focus very strongly on education. Not the education of yesterday, but the education of tomorrow. How can we make sure that teachers are paid a decent wage, so that it's a middle-class lifestyle for them, so that their teachers have quality educators, so that they have school resource officers that will keep them safe, mental health counselors that will provide for the children beyond just classroom needs, but to make sure that their mental health is stable to help prevent school shootings as well. We need to look at the challenges that we're facing. It includes education, it includes jobs, and it includes mental health for our students. I think if we can make sure that we have a strong backbone of education in this area, which includes vocational training, which the governor has been very good at, I think we can continue to make this place somewhere that is prosperous, not just in the next 4 years, but in the next 20 years, a place that our kids want to come back home to, and a place that grows.
Carrie, to wrap things up, we'll give you one more question here before we close things out. Let's look at the issue of education. You have had a number of dealings with both co-sponsoring and working bills through the House for the idea of education. We know that we've had our own little issue with some of our testing that has not gone exactly right. But in the long run, we meet the challenges of an ever-changing workplace. How do you feel that you can address that issue if we turn you up there for another 4 years?
I'm going to need you to clarify the question. Are you asking about education, or are you asking about the workforce?
Education.
Well, in education, I've certainly departed from the governor on more than one occasion with respect to how the Department of Education prioritizes the high-stakes testing. To give a little bit of background, you know, when Governor Haslam came into office, they felt like that the Tennessee Education Association had way too much influence on education policy. Well, what happened was the pendulum swung all the way to the other extreme, where really the Department of Education probably had far too much influence on education policy and maybe ignored the input of the TEA or the teachers, the administrators actually in the classroom. We need to find that place of equilibrium. We need to find that place of balance where we're respecting the opinion of those in the classroom and where we're not putting so much pressure on high-stakes testing that they find themselves having to teach to the test versus imparting an education to the young people. You've heard me say this over and over again. You know, really, if we want to have good schools, it has to begin with the county. And the state ought to be there to support their efforts not dictate their efforts. So that's my position on education.
Wade, we'll go back to you with the exact same question. When it comes to education, how do you see you as a senator trying to influence that and solve that problem that's been with us for a while?
Yeah, and I've said it before, when the president is right, I'll say that he's right, although you'll hear me say when I think he's wrong. And it's the same way with Senator Roberts. I think he is right on this issue. I think that we should be outraged that these tests failed our students, failed our teachers, failed our communities. I think we need to hold that company accountable for that, and I think we need to make sure that these high-stakes tests are administered properly, or we give some power back to the local school boards and the local schools. What I think we also need to focus on when it comes to education is what my aunt, who's a public school teacher, says is the high heel brigade that comes through. It's a group of consultants that will come through and try to modify these schools, local school zones and local schools, to make sure that they're running efficiently and properly. If we listen to teachers, if we listen to local elected officials and school administrators, we can find out individually what can help a school like Waverly Central or like Springfield High School. We need to listen to local officials, and I would agree with Carrie Roberts that that the Department of Education has too much power at this point.
Well, gentlemen, if you don't mind, we'll give you one clarification question here before we give you a chance to summarize up. Both of y'all mentioned that you felt like authority over education needs to be moved back to the local level. That whether it's the unions or whether it's the Department of Education, you feel like that too high of a level of bureaucracy has a hold of that. So here's the question. How do you feel you can move that pendulum back to the local level when, as Ronald Reagan once said, the only thing that's close to immortality is bureaucracy? So, Carrie, we'll start with you.
Well, I've been a big fan of either eliminating or significantly curtailing the federal Department of Education. Ideologues get in charge of the federal Department of Education, and they push that ideology down, and what they do is they hold federal dollars hostage. You do it our way or you don't get the funding. And I completely disagree with that. I just think that's wrong. If we're going to have a federal Department of Education, let's let them be in a role where they provide information, they provide statistics, information that would be useful. But let's let the local district, with support from the state, make these decisions. And of course, the Department of Education is attached to the executive branch of government. So it requires 17 votes in the Senate and 50 votes in the House to change the governor's education policy. So for us to override him, we have to have votes in the General Assembly. I think this is probably going to change a lot with our incoming governor. So stay tuned as to how it unfolds. But I would like to see our State Department of Education work in a more supportive role versus a management role that I believe they're currently in.
Wade, if you would, we'll just bounce the same question off of you. How do you see the effort of returning control to local levels when it comes to education?
Sure, and let me just first say that one of the foundational principles of why I believe teachers should have a lot more input in how education is administered through the state, both them and the school board, is that they spend a lot of money, and we spend a lot of money on their education to make sure that they are qualified to teach, that they know what they're doing. That's why I think we need to trust them. One thing that we can do is we've got a $30+ billion state budget. Our highest spending priority is on education, but we're still 46th in the nation. I think what we need to do is bring that number up. We're still going to be spending a lot of money on education, but we need to believe in our teachers and believe in our students. And if we can go from 46th to 40th to 35th and give those discretionary dollars to local school districts and rebalance the distribution of those funds, urban versus rural, so that rural communities have more say over how education dollars are spent here, then I think we can provide a better education and a better future for our kids.
All right, gentlemen, if you would, let's wrap things up. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to make a closing statement. You can use all or as little of it as you feel like you want to. So far, you guys have been coming under budget. Can't complain at all. We started with the introductions with Carrie, so we'll start with the conclusions with Wade. If you would, 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, again, I just want to say thank you to the listeners, thank you to Senator Roberts and to the hosts, and for everyone here in attendance. I really believe in the spirit of debate, and I believe in respectful debate. And so as this campaign goes on, you'll hear contrasts, but I don't think you'll hear anything worse than that. I have a pretty significant difference of opinion with the Republican Party on a number of things and with Senator Roberts on a number of things. That doesn't change my respect for the party or for the people who are currently in our government. As a matter of fact, if it did change that, then I'd have a falling out with most of my family. And so that's where I kind of learn about this bipartisan spirit. I firmly believe that we need to look at issues differently. We need to invest in the people of Tennessee. We have a $30+ billion budget in the state of Tennessee. That burden falls on wealthy people, middle-income people, poor people. We need to make sure that we are serving everyone, not just the job creators, but the people who are working minimum wage jobs, who are putting 2 and 3 minimum wage jobs together to try to raise their families. I think they need a voice in this election, and that's why I'm running. I firmly believe that a contrast can bring us to some consensus eventually so that we can serve more people. I think with a Republican supermajority, our state has not been well served. There have been one-sided arguments. There have been committees that don't pass bills that should be debated and passed. And so I'm running so that I can provide a difference of opinion. I'm running to be the state senator who will listen to people who have not been heard. Thank you.
And thank you again for coming here today, Wade. We appreciate it very much. Carrie, if you would, 3 minutes.
Thank you. I want to just rattle off some information here. This is called Tennessee Success Story, and it's something that Governor Haslam has published. And this tells you, we have a saying that we use a lot. It matters who governs. And with this Republican supermajority that we've had over the past 8 years, here's what's happened. We've created more than 400,000 net new private sector jobs. We've cut sales tax on groceries by nearly 30%. Median household incomes are growing at the second fastest rate in the Southeast United States. We have among the lowest taxes in the nation as a percentage of personal income. We have the fastest improving K through 12 students in the nation. We have the highest high school graduation rate in state history. We've invested an additional $1.5 billion in K through 12 education, with nearly $500 million going to teacher salaries, and I'll add that we just put in $25 more million for school safety. We've got more recent high school graduates enrolling in college than ever before. We have infrastructure investments in all 95 counties without taking on new taxes. We've got the lowest state debt per capita in the nation. And for the second year in a row, we have a AAA bond rating from all 3 credit agencies. And that is really unprecedented in the history of Tennessee. And when I say we're the envy of just about every other state in the nation, that is not an understatement. Let me give you some Humphreys County specific numbers. We put $729 million into our schools here. We've put almost $34 million into road projects here in Humphreys County, and we've invested $293 million in infrastructure investments that have created jobs here in Humphreys County. So there's a lot of good things to talk about, and I'll just close by saying it's been an honor to be a part of this. I do think it matters who governs. We've been able to accomplish a lot, but let's see if we can't set even more records than we've already set. Thank you very much.
Gary, we appreciate you taking the time to come down here today. I want to remind our listeners that both Carrie and Wade are in their primary right now. They have to go over that hurdle. They will be meeting head-to-head, since neither one of them are opposed in the primary, in November. So we appreciate them.
If we don't win our primaries, then we're
fingers crossed.
Which is another reason why I never put my name on the ballot. We appreciate both of you coming down. It will be November before but we do appreciate you taking time out during the primary season to come out and talk to us here in Humphreys County. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're listening to WQMV AM 1060 and 93.5 FM. We are doing our candidates forum, and we're going to take a few moments out as we get things set up. We'll be right back with the county executive candidates. And 93.5 FM. Austin Taylor with you, and Ward Phillips, as we're coming to you live from the auditorium of the Waverly Central High School. We're doing our candidates forum that we do whenever we have major election coming up. We've been concentrating on the state level candidates. We're now going to get down to onto the county level with our candidates. We're going to begin with the county executive's position. I'm going to turn over to Ward here, who will have the pleasure of introducing everybody today.
Thank you, Dean. Up next, we've got the incumbent county executive, Mr. Jesse Wallace. He's here with us. He's running against an opponent who also was extended an invitation to be at this forum and is not here, so we won't be hearing from him, but we'll allow Executive Wallace, if you will, please introduce yourself, say a few words, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you. Thank you, Ward. I'll first offer my gratitude to WQMV 1060, the News Democrat, the two moderators, and Waverly Central High School for hosting this forum. I welcome this opportunity. Hopefully today, those of you in the audience and those of you watching at home and listening on the radio we'll learn a little more about the jobs that are at stake with the August election, and also a little more about the candidates who are asking for your vote. There are some misconceptions. There's some lack of understanding in terms of exactly what the roles are for the local officials in any county's government. Ours is no exception. I was no exception. I learned it was a steep learning curve when I was elected to this position 4 years ago. I learned right away that it's a job greater than just sitting for pictures and attending forums and kissing babies on Saturday morning. As an example, I'm the CEO of the county government and also the CFO. It's not always the case in every county, but ours is a small one, and typical of rural counties with smaller populations. We all have to wear a lot of different hats. I perform as maintenance manager of all the county infrastructure with the exception of the school system. I'm the public works director. I'm the human resource manager and the personnel director. I do all the IT work. I create the budget and present it to the commission for their approval on an annual basis, and then I watch manage the day-to-day spending thereafter until the next budget's adopted. I write the grants that for most of those that we're awarded, and I administer those grants after the fact. In terms of grants, we've had a great period of time over the last 8 years. We've taken in state and federal grants more than $15 million, of which we've applied to capital improvements in this county. Our county's in a great place right now. There's room for improvement, certainly. There always will be. But I feel good about what we've done, myself and the other elected officials, over the course of the last 8 years, and I look forward to continuing to serve in that capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. I'd like to just start, if it's okay. Apparently, by the information presented here recently, Humphreys County appears to be in great fiscal shape. We've got the lowest unemployment rate in years, and that was noted just a few minutes ago from both the senatorial and the representative candidates. We've got the lowest per capita debt ratios among all counties in the state of Tennessee. In fact, I learned just the other day, Humphreys County is debt-free, which would make us absolutely the lowest debt county among the 95 in Tennessee. That's all good things. There's a sense of growth in several areas. My question to you, sir, would be that as the incumbent, what do you feel is necessary to keep Humphreys County on that pace?
Well, it's going to be difficult. We've certainly found ourselves as a benefit of the recovering economy nationwide, and certainly also benefiting from a great position in terms of natural resources that we bring to bear, which have precipitated the sort of industry that's the envy of all of the surrounding counties. That in and of itself is the major contributor to the fact that our unemployment rate is as low as it has ever been. And also, owing to that fact and the investments made by the industry as well as investments made by private citizens in this county, we've been able to increase revenues at a rate that have resulted in not having the necessity of raising taxes in order to maintain the level of service that we've promised our constituents throughout the years. We're going to see growth, and we're going to see it very soon. It's inevitable. We see Dixon County bulging at the seams, Cheatham County the same way, and Clarksville is at an all-time rate of growth. So it's inevitable that we'll see growth materialize here probably in the next couple of years. And when it does, we need to be ready and we need to manage it efficiently.
Thank you, Jesse. My questions are going to basically center around some of the items that have been left on the table. Your opponent was offered the opportunity to be here today. He was unable to be here. We're sorry for that. We were looking forward to him making an appearance today. But a number of issues have been laid on the table by him and his party, and I'd like to run some of those by you and give you the opportunity to comment on them. I want to start off with, this is coming from the ad that they ran in the Shopper's Guide earlier this week, and one of the items they pointed out was, or they stated was, that over the previous 8 years of your administration, they have continually raised property tax without reinvesting in our schools, our roads, and our infrastructure. Can you take about 30 or 90 seconds there and comment on that particular point that they're trying to make?
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's an inaccurate statement. In fact, Humphreys County government has raised the property tax exactly one time in the last 24 years. We've seen our tax revenue increase, certainly, but it's come by way of investments into our county, and we expect that to continue. As far as reinvesting in our infrastructure, take first our highway system, one of the biggest concerns of all of our citizens, especially those that live outside the municipalities. As we've retired debt in Humphreys County, and as previously mentioned, we're currently debt-free. As we've retired that debt, we've reinvested that debt service money into a couple of places, and primarily from those has been our highway system. We currently put over $1 million in local money into the local highway system. That's nearly a third, a little over a third of their annual budget, and more than any of our sister communities put in. In fact, most that don't add anything of local money to their highway system are relying entirely on gas tax money distributed by the state. We've recently set aside money to meet the match on a federal grant that we hope will see an expansion of our community college, and we continue to look at ways that we can improve the rest of our infrastructure.
Thank you, Jesse. I know it's debatable subjects, the zero debt, excuse me, the tax structure situation. I think there's a misconception, or at least I know there's a misconception among some folks, some voting people, who don't truly understand the county government's relationship to the state of Tennessee and to the federal government as well. Can you elaborate on perhaps what is mandated that the county must participate in, as opposed to what the local county commission has got to decide on?
You know, it's an interesting fact, or at least it is from my perspective and with my history, to know that, to learn and to point out that local legislative bodies, the county commission, the municipal councils, and the school board have no authority to establish laws or create rules. They only are empowered with the authority to enact options that are previously established by the General Assembly. The same is true of what I do. Of the monies that are spent in service to the community, all of those monies are allocated by the local county commission. That's their primary responsibility. They are made aware and quantify and qualify the needs of the citizen, and they set about to establish what funding is necessary to meet those needs. And that's different from the way other legislative bodies, the way other central administration factors into the operations of the local government. We're a subdivision of state government, and they drive the train as it relates to making the rules.
Well, thank you, Jesse. We appreciate that. And I'm going to take 2 points now that has been pointed out about the previous 8 years. Both our state representative and our state senator acknowledge the fact that unemployment rate is lower here in Humphreys County than it has been for a number of years. But the point has been made in some of these by your opponent that unemployment rate is down because people are seeking employment outside the county, and that also that local businesses have reduced their employment by a little over 3%, and that total business growth is down here in Humphreys County since 2012. Can you care to comment on that? Because the bulk of that would have taken place while you were in the position of county executive.
Certainly. It is a fact that we have citizens who commute outside of Humphreys County for employment. That's inevitable as we see a heavy industrial growth in Montgomery counties and in Stewart County and primarily in the Dixon County area. Certainly as better job opportunities materialize, people are going to take advantage of that. But it's also a fact that historically, and now is no exception, we have many more people commuting into Humphreys County for employment than we have driving out. The ratio is about 35% of Humphreys County residents commute outside of Humphreys County for employment, while 55% of the industrial employees in Humphreys County come from somewhere else. So it's always been a trade-off, and I believe that local industry is doing a better job to try to seek out qualified employees from their home county. We have a commitment from them that it was born of an industrial alliance, which I co-chair, and I think we'll see that specifically increase employment opportunities for Humphreys County people for those among us who are willing to obtain the education, the experience, and qualify for the kind of quality jobs that we're talking about.
Mr. Wallace, if you would, just kind of wrap it up. You've addressed these issues, and I don't want to continue to harp on issues that are presented by someone who's not here. But if you would, just take a few moments and explain to me and this audience what it is about your personal qualifications that make you the best choice in maintaining this positive position that we're in or possibly improving it. Just give us a wrap-up of why you would be the best choice for this position.
Yes, sir. When I ran 8 years ago, I ran on a platform of having 12 years experience with the county commission and having served in a managerial position with a large telecommunications company for many years prior to that. I felt like that it established the credentials and the skill sets necessary to do this job. And to some extent it did. But I was quick to learn there was a lot I didn't know. And in fact, that's been exacerbated by the changes that have occurred over the last 8 years. We moved into a method of operating that's driven by technology like the rest of the world. Things are moving at a rapid pace, and the learning curve is steep. And I feel like that aside from the qualifications that I brought into the job, my experience over the last 8 years as we've ushered in these changes and as we've seen these fantastic growth factors in all facets of our community existence, I think clearly establishes my credentials to continue to do this, especially considering the great condition that we find ourselves in.
Jesse, my final question to you is one I think of makes you pull out your crystal ball a little bit, because I know that every position that a person runs for has their own unique challenges. Humphreys County is very unique from the counties that touch us and our borders. So looking forward over the next term that you're asking us to put you back in office for, what do you see as the major challenge for Humphreys County, and how do you see addressing and overcoming that challenge?
Well, we've got a number of infrastructure challenges. I think that we'll see growth within our school system in the next few years, which will necessitate some investment in that infrastructure. Our roads continue to improve, but not at a rate that I'm happy with. We've got a terrible situation with our jail. We're overcrowded, and we're going to have to meet that challenge. And how we're going to meet that as best we can, and for as long as we can sustain it, we're going to meet it with cash purchases of the things we need. And as far as identifying those needs, we're going to rely on the elected officials whose job it is to identify those needs. We're going to trust them, and we're going to do what's necessary to provide for the residents of this county. The situation we have with no outstanding debt gives us a lot of flexibility. We hope that debt is limited over the course of the next few years as we experience the inevitable growth. Debt is not always a bad thing. You know, it's a marker of growth, and we need to see some positive growth, and I believe that'll happen. It's hard to sit at our homes at night and think about all that we'd like to see happen, and try to justify the expenses that are going to be associated with replacing our jail, but it's something that we have to do. And fortunately, we're in a financial position, that we can do a lot of that with cash expenditures rather than long-term debt.
You're really good at coming in under the money there, Jesse. You catch us off guard each time. We appreciate you taking the time, because I know that you have a busy day and a busy week going on as well. But if you would just take a moment, take 3 minutes to summarize why you feel and make an appeal for why you feel you want the support of citizens of Humphreys County for your re-election bid.
First and foremost, I appreciate all the support I've had in the past, and I make this formal appeal for your support going forward in the future. I've taken a public stance in opposition to partisan politics interjected into the local government scene. I don't think that it's appropriate or applicable to what we need and what we do. We're a service delivery organization, and our job is to do that as efficiently as we can and provide for as much need as possible. I came into this job at a time where our country was in a terrible financial situation, and in addition to that, in the first 12 months of my tenure, we dealt with 4 nationally declared disasters, including the Great Flood of 2010, which I should add at this point, we met the needs materialized by that flood, unlike some sister communities who had to borrow a great deal of money in order to see their infrastructure restored. We used what we had on hand and worked with FEMA to get over $4.6 million worth of federal subsidies to help offset those expenses, and we didn't incur any new debt because of that. We've recovered from our unemployment woes, and I don't take particular credit for that. That's something that is a direct result of what we have here as a community in terms of natural resources, and I include the people of Humphreys County among those resources. We're lucky and the envy of every county around us. I can't tell you how many times that I've heard from my peers who have made remarks of an astounding nature as it relates to where we are financially and where we are in terms of potential. So I hope that you'll see the benefit of where we've been over the last 8 years, and trust me to see us grow even further and improve even more in the next term. Thank you.
And thank you again, Jesse, very much for being here today. You are listening to WQMV AM 1060 and 93.5 FM. We're going to take a moment out. When we come back, we'll be talking with the county commission candidates and getting ready to close things out here for the day. Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
News Democrat Political Forum here live at the Waverly Central High School Auditorium. If you're out there listening, riding around, I know it's hot enough to lay an egg, but you've got time to get down here and come join us if you'd like. We're coming back now. We're going to be addressing, we're going to have the candidates for the Humphreys County Commission District 1 and District 2. We've got them up on the panel board at the moment, the ones that are here. And I suppose we'll start with the only incumbent that's sitting at the table at the time is Mr. Tim Daniel, District 1. He's here with us, and Tim, if you would, just take a moment. I know you guys are sharing a mic, so be nice about it. Tim, just introduce yourself for a couple of moments, tell people who you are, a little bit about you, and so forth. Then we'll move from there.
All right, thank you, Ward. Yeah, I'm Tim Daniel. I was a lifelong resident here of Humphreys County. Married to Tammy. We have 3 kids, a couple of grandkids, but I got one 911 assistant director, my daughter. Got a son studying for the bar right now that just went through law school. And my youngest son is 27, I guess, and he works for the city, and right now I think he is making high quality H2O. He works at the water plant.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. We're going to introduce a couple of the opponents in the District 1 County Commission race. As you know, Mr. Daniel's the incumbent. The other incumbent for that office right now, John Hunt, apparently is not with us. I'm going to mention all of them. Melvin Work is also a candidate in that race. He's not with us this morning. But the 2 that are, we'll start with Ken Gentry and Mr. Don Lowers, are both seeking the same office in County Commission District 1. Ken, we'll start with you. Take just a couple of moments and introduce yourself and tell folks who you are and what you're about.
Yeah, hi, my name's Ken Gentry. I grew up here, born here, graduated high school here, then I went off into the military, did my service there, ended up in Orlando. That's where I met my wife of 23 years. We got 2 kids. One of them's in college. My little girl will be going for college next year. So, yeah, prayers. We moved back here 13 years ago, 14 years ago, started settled down, wanted to finish out where we started, and I just want to get a little more involved in what's going on. I see things, you know, that I think could be better like everybody else does, and I've been a business owner for the majority of my adult life, minus the time in the service, last 30 years, and I think that gives me a pretty unique perspective. And so I figured I'd put my feet in a Shark Tank and see how it turns out.
Thank you, Ken. We'll move right down the table now. We'll come back to each one of these candidates in a moment with a little more discussion, but next we'll move right down the table to Don Lowers, who's also a candidate for County Commissioner in District 1. Don, take just a couple of moments and tell us who you are. Introduce yourself to this audience.
Thank you. My name is Don Lowers. I'm running for County Commissioner District 1, and it's an absolute honor for me to be able to step into a new environment. I lived in the community now for about 12 years. However, my wife's family has been in this community for over 200 years, a family farm of which we've applied for century farm status, which we should be hearing here sometime this month. We're very excited about that, given the fact that there's a lot of heritage on the Lewis family in Waverly, Tennessee. I'm a veteran that served the United States in Vietnam, and then I came from Vietnam. That's when I got married. My wife and I, Jane, we have 2 daughters, 3 grandchildren. We're getting ready to celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary next month, and we're real excited about that. My wife wasn't able to come here today. She's a little under the weather. What I bring to the table, I think, is a 44-year business background in logistics and finance. With that being said, I got the interest of starting to come to the county commissioner meetings to learn all about small town government. I retired 2 years ago and still have the drive that I feel I want to help this community and use my resources and my background. In attending the majority of the meetings this year, I found that my background in finance and business somewhat fits the deal. So with that being said, I think that I'm confident that my background will be right in line with what the county commissioner's role will play.
Thank you, Don. We're going to move into the County Commission District 2 now. That particular race has got a total of 5 candidates on the ballot. The incumbents there are Kay Hampton. She's the only incumbent, as Taylor Hall is not seeking re-election. The rest of the field is Paul Demers, David F. Denton, James W. Jim Jared, who we're going to come back to in just a minute, and Tassie Thomas. And it appears that Mr. Jared is the only one of that field that's among us, and he's up here at the table now. Jim, take just a couple of minutes and introduce yourself. Tell this audience who you are and what you're about.
Okay, thank you, Ward. Again, I want to I do appreciate the News Democrat and WQMV for putting on the forum today. I'm proud to participate in it. As Ward said, my name is Jim Jared. I am seeking position as Commissioner in 2nd District. I came to Humphreys County about 45 years ago with the company then with the name of Inland Container. I was an accounting supervisor there for 15 years. In 1989, my boss retired cold turkey, and I fell into the controller's job and had to do the work whether or not, I didn't know at the time whether I was going to get the job or not. I certainly wanted it. But that same year, I was also involved with the Waverly Planning Commission. I was chair of that. I was chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. I was involved in Masonic Lodge. I was master of the lodge that year. I was president of the local Scottish Rite Club and president of the Shrine Club. Needless to say, 1989 was a busy year. In the job I had as controller, I was in charge of course, the accounting and purchasing departments reported to me. Our annual expenditures at the mill were probably close to 3 times what the combined county budget is here for schools and county government. But I think my business experience and work for finance can probably benefit the county.
Thank you, Jim. Dean, have you got a question for any of these guys, or you want me to just roll with it? Roll with it. I want to ask you just a couple of very, very basic questions, but they're questions that voters out here are asking. And there's a lot of misunderstanding, maybe a little bit of confusion exactly what the duty of a county commissioner is. I know good and well none of you are in it for the money. So, or if you are, I got a bridge to sell you. But anyway, we're going to start with our incumbent commissioner. Tim has been a commissioner for a while. For the people out there who don't know what a county commissioner is, what their duties are, what their powers are, what their limits are, just very briefly, tell me what the job of a county commissioner is, Tim Daniel.
I don't know. I don't think I've been told that in the last 8 years, but to be specific, working with Jesse Wallace, one of the, I guess, greatest men I've had the challenge to actually be working with, which he prepares a budget, and, you know, there's, just like you said, misconceptions on different things of what you can do, what you can't do, and I know his opponent thinks he can do this or that. I mean, Jesse can do what we tell him to do, but we got to either have the money, pass, and get the money which gratefully I've been a part of him since the last 8 years, and we've had some troubling times. I know I'm really not answering your question, but I mean, it's working together, and as far as just basically the duty, and your citizens will ask you, hey, check on this road for me. Well, that's not my job. Your job is to work with your county executive, work together with your fellow commissioners, and through the bad times of hiking tax raises, yes, I was involved in it. It was a good thing. Didn't think so then, but look at our debt now. I was glad I was part of it. It's hard to say just one, what is your job? It's just to get out, check in your district, see what your people needs. Not that even though you can help them, it's what you can do for all of them, not what you can do for me. What can you do for me? I can't do anything specifically for you. I can try to do something for our district. If that kind of sums it up, but
thank you, Tim.
I may have talked around it, but that's.
We did well. Ken Gentry,
Yeah,
I'm
but
going to ask you a very similar question. I know that you just introduced yourself, gave a little bit of biographical information, a little bit of resume information. My question to you, based on not necessarily just Mr. Daniels' definition of this job, but very briefly, share with us what your definition of this job is, and tell me what qualifications you possess that would make you the best candidate to fill that seat.
Well, I think the job of a commissioner is to look at the financial situation prepared by the executive and to best determine where the funds in the county should be distributed, whether it's to the school system or the water treatment plant or wherever they need to be. You need to assess it as best you possibly can and then try to put the best money where it needs to be to do the most good. And me personally, I've owned my own business for over 30 years. It's one thing to work for a company where somebody's got your back, but it's an entirely different thing when you're the back wall, okay? So I think being successful in business, supporting my family, putting my kids through college, all on me, I think that gives me more than enough qualification to determine how to run a financial business.
Thank you, Ken. That's what the voters and the audience of this thing want to hear, and we're going to hear that same question from Mr. Don Lowers. Don, you also gave us a little biographical information, a little bit of your resume. Tell me in your words what this job is and why you possess the qualifications to do the job the best.
Well, I've attended the majority of the county commissioner meetings this past year. When I got enthused and wanted to participate in community government, I felt it was important for me to participate in their meetings as a citizen and first learn the activities that they represent. And I've seen some very good work done by the county commissioners and some of the activities that they were in. I think from my position, I would like to play maybe a little stronger role. I would be a breath of fresh air, maybe ask a different set of questions to the topics and issues that come to the table that maybe some of the other candidates may not have asked, and maybe even ask some of the tough questions on the requests that come before the commissioner board. I think it's critical that we know that hard work, determination, and thorough knowledge of what it takes to get the job done before you cast any vote on that board.
Thank you, Don. Jim Jarrett over in District 2. You're also a challenging candidate for the position of county commission. Would you take the same question, just very briefly explain to us what you think a county commissioner does, and why you're best qualified to fill that seat.
Okay. County commissioners are a collection of individuals essentially to assist the county executive in his work. I mean, we're coming from 14 different directions and we're arguing over the issues, and the idea is to come to a consensus, the best consensus you can come to solve the problems for the county. I think that's essentially it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Now you're all in trouble. I get to ask the question. To be honest with you, Jim, I'm going to start back with you with just a second. And mainly what I want to get from each and every one of you on this question is just a concise one point that you see as being a major hurdle for Humphreys County in your upcoming term. I know that part of what you do is to be able to work with the other commissioners to do what's best for the county as a whole, but looking at it as an obstacle coming up, what do you see as the major challenge coming up for Humphreys County over the next couple of years?
One of the first things I see this year, this is the first time I've seen partisan politics inject its ugly head, so to speak, in county politics. I don't think it's needed. We do have a lot of decisions to make. We don't need somebody dictating to us from either Nashville or Washington, D.C. Our problems are local here, and they need to be solved here. Long range total, the county has right now is a comfortable position as far as their landfill and solid waste goes, but I think how long we can take it to Camden, what I understand is about 20 years, but the solid waste is going to become an issue, and it's going to be here quicker than we realize it, and I think it's something we need to look at to solve that problem on the long term.
Now, moving back into District 1, Don, if you would take the same question, looking ahead, what do you see as a major obstacle, and how do you see overcoming that obstacle in the next couple of years?
I see potentially 6 items that I felt would be the upcoming term that will have to be addressed by the county commissioners. The number 1 item I felt is medical health care. I think our senior citizen ratio is 60% plus in our community, more so of a retirement community. Medical health is critical to them that they don't have to travel far. And as most of you know, our local hospital just approached the county commissions for a $375,000 loan, of which I believe is supposed to be paid in two payments this year, or maybe just by the end of the year. I don't think there's any question that our senior citizens are looking to have a very close window if they have medical issues. So instead of having to have somebody drive them to Dixon or Clarksville or the next county over for the medical help they need, they want to be local. And I think it's paramount that the county commissioners do everything within their power to make that work. The second item, of course, is taxes. I think the senior citizens are worried about the tax rate and how it's going to go. No question, property taxes haven't gone up in, I believe Jesse mentioned, 25 years. Outstanding record. Hopefully that'll continue to maintain. My third item is the infrastructure. We need to continue to work on the infrastructure and take every opportunity we can to improve it. While our debt is free, maybe we need to look at some of that infrastructure items that need to be pressed, because if we don't do it soon, it'll catch up to us. Change. Maybe some new candidates on the board will bring some new ideas, new change, but complement the efforts of the team that's in there as we speak.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Kenneth, exact same question to you. Looking ahead, obviously everyone runs for an office for their own reason, but there's got to be something that you're concerned with, and how do you feel like you can address that over the next coming years?
Well, I would agree with Mr. Wallace that we're set up for a lot of growth in the next 2 to 5 years. It's going to come whether we want it or not. And being debt-free, that's a great thing, but sometimes it's also a bad thing. A little debt's not bad. I mean, most people have a mortgage. It doesn't mean you're bad or you did something wrong just because you pay your mortgage every month. It just means it was stuff that you couldn't afford to pay cash for. And there's a lot of things in the future, primarily high-speed internet, road systems, things like that, that draw business in, create jobs, lower taxes, generate more revenue for the county. And those types of things, maybe we do need to spend a little of the county money to improve those things, move those things forward. Preferably do it with local businesses. Keep the money local, buy local, spend local. You know, that's kind of what I'm trying to get to here.
Do you have the same question?
No, I don't mind. I just want to kind of, I guess, reiterate here some of what I was listening to. Probably infrastructure, probably bridges, and we need to get some land of where we can have industrial, and that's what we have been working on. And sitting on this county commission, and with y'all's help, hopefully I will continue to, but you can't sit up there on that commission and spend taxpayers' money trying to take care of Medicare and different things like that. You know, you're sitting there and you're spending your money as a taxpayer, but you're spending my money as a taxpayer. And roads, yes, you know, you probably have to go, Jesse's got it down as good as with our help and with everybody's help working together. You probably have to go to Williamson County just to get as close as anybody that where we're at, putting over $1 million of your money back into the roads system. And far as schools and putting in, you just can't go in there and, okay, the school needs the money. Let's take this money and give it to the school. Oh, no. That raises your maintenance of effort. Once you set that, you have to follow that every year. And, I mean, being there and being in government for, I mean, I've been in government for over 40 years, and just seeing both sides of it. I've been on the paycheck getting side of it, and I've been on the signing paycheck side of it. But the county commission, you have to watch what you do, and Jesse's the man that keeps us in line, and we can't go this way, but we can do it this way, spending taxpayer dollars and insurance, Medicare. I mean, all you can do is take care of your people of the county that works for the county. You can't take care of citizens. You can in such a way of, like myself now, is on fixed income. You talk about older people worried about taxes, whatnot. We have a relief tax break that they can come in. If they qualify, they get it. So, I mean, you know, there's a little more technical there than just what we can do with our money, or your money.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Jim. We're going to move on now. There's a whole lot of candidates here for the county commission races, and we're going to just kind of take them one district at a time as best we can. So, gentlemen, we thank you for being here.
Thank you all for having us. Appreciate it.
And we're going to ask the District 3 candidates that are among us, if you would please make your way up to the stage, and Dean will tell you about the station break.
We'll take a moment out. We'll be right back with our candidates forum on WQMV, AM 1060 and 93.5 FM.
QMV and the News Democrat Candidates Forum coming to you live from the Waverly Central High School Auditorium here in Waverly, Tennessee. Certainly you're invited to come down and join us and be a part if you're in the listening area. We have a list of the upcoming candidates. We're presently in the county commission races. We just discussed the 1st district and the 2nd district, had a little discussion with those candidates. Now upon the panel table are the candidates for the 3rd district county commission. There are 3 candidates in that list, and of course in each one of these districts you elect 2 to fill those seats. And this particular panel, we've got the incumbents, Marilyn Phillips and Ronnie Hughes, and then the Republican challenger, Mr. Carl Couch, is up on the board. So welcome, all of you. We appreciate you guys coming out and being a part of this, and we're going to give you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself. We'll start with the incumbents as we did before, and I don't know whether it ought to be age over beauty or beauty over age, but
Which one can get you in the most trouble?
we'll start with ladies first. Miss Marilyn Phillips, if you will, please just take a moment to introduce yourself to this audience and let us know a little something about you.
Good afternoon. My name is Marilyn Phillips, and I'm currently Commissioner from the 3rd District. I have lived in Humphreys County since I was a teenager, raised 4 children here. They've all graduated from Waverly Central High School. Ward and I also have 6 grandchildren, and for those of you who don't know, that's my husband right there. And Ward and I have been married 34 years. I taught school for 40 years. I was a public servant. And when I got ready to retire, somebody said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, I really don't know. I just know I'm not going to go to school every morning. And so I was asked by some people, and they said, "Well, why don't you run for commissioner?" And I thought, and I thought about it a while. For 40 years, I took care of people. I took care of the little people. I took care of the parents and any problems that they had with them during the school day. And so I thought it would be an opportunity to continue my service to my community by working on taking care of my constituents, but just from another angle. And I've really enjoyed my time, learned a lot, and the longer I'm on it, the more I realize I don't know, but I'm not afraid to ask questions and do whatever research is necessary.
Thank you. Moving on down the road, we're going to go to our second incumbent, Mr. Ronnie Hughes. Ronnie, if you would, and I hope you get feeling better, by the way. I see you.
Oh, I will.
Yeah.
As soon as I can get this hip replaced, I'll be doing fine.
Well, before you do that, Ronnie, please take a few moments and introduce yourself to this audience.
Will do. My name is Ronnie Hughes. I've been on the county court for 24 years. It's been my pleasure to serve not only the 3rd District, but the people of Humphreys County for that period of time. I am chairman of the Budget, Finance, and Personnel Committee, and it has been a pleasure to serve with that group. And I work with a fine group of men that we try to do what is right for the county. And I've enjoyed that very much.
Thank you, Ronnie. Now we'll move to Mr. Carl Couch, who is also a candidate, and this is the 3rd District. We'll remind the audience, 3rd District County Commission. Mr. Carl Couch, take just a few minutes and tell us who you are and a little bit about you and so forth.
All right, I'm a transplant to Humphreys County. I married Susan Tester. She grew up here, and I come out of the Navy, moved to Humphreys County in '96, and struggled through finding different opportunities, and decided the best opportunity was to go back to the Navy, and I did another 16 years to retire. I'm used to working with sailors and leading people and looking out for my sailors. And when I came back here, I was looking for different things. I got into the school as a substitute teacher 1 year. Next year, I worked as a aide with a student. And being in the school, I learned a lot about the youth around here and the limited opportunity they have. And just like I was used to taking care of sailors, I was just looking for the next step of taking care of the youth of our community, to give them the opportunity that I couldn't find when I came here.
Thank you, Carl. Okay. Dean, you got anything you'd like to ask these questions? This question is kind of for all three of you, I suppose. We just heard the candidates from a couple of other districts define the job of a county commissioner, and I don't know that we want to necessarily go through that, but you were all here and you all heard Mr. Daniels' definition of that job and then the subsequent conversation that took place. So we won't necessarily go directly into that again unless you'd like to inject your own definition of what this job is that you're seeking to fill. But my question, and we'll go down the board with the same question. You've all introduced yourself, give a little bit of a resume and so forth. But my question is that based on your individual qualifications and your individual life's experiences and so forth, what makes you the best choice to fill one of these two seats to represent this district? And we'll start again at the end of the table, Marilyn Phillips.
Well, I served for 4 years on this commission, and as I said before, I have worked with the people of this county for over 40 years, and I have their best interest at heart. I don't have an allegiance to any kind of political party. I just want what's best for the people, and as I said before, I'm not afraid to ask questions, and I'm not afraid to do the research on the things that I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Ronnie, we'll move on to you. The same question, basically, based on your qualifications, your life's experiences, and so forth, what makes you the best choice to fill one of these two seats to represent District 3?
Well, my first public office was I held a seat on the school board for 6 years. And that opened my eyes tremendously to what we can do and what we can't do. And at that time, we were crunching money. We had to cut money out of the budget just to sustain life. With a wife who taught for 37 years at the elementary school, I knew what was coming out of my pocket personally for what was going into the school systems as far as paper and soap and just things of this nature. So my eyes was opened, and when I first came to the county court, knowing that we have a lot of different systems that we have to work, just like the schools and the roads and the jails and the public works, and it's you have to be able to differentiate what is positive and what we can do and what is luxury and we can't do. But I have seen that and tried to look at everything with an open eye.
Thank you, Ryan. Carl, we'll come to you with the same question. Based on your qualifications and your life's experiences, what makes you the best choice to fill one of these two seats and represent District 3 on the County Commission?
Well, I mentioned being a sailor. While I was a sailor, I got my degree in management, and I got to do a lot of budget managing in the Navy. And I got in trouble sometimes for not spending enough money. One unit I was in, I saved a third of their money of the operation. We met all our targets and mission requirements, and it was just changing how we spent our money. And so I've got a little experience with budgets and things like that. And just different life experience, I guess, coming in from the outside and with some different background.
Okay, thank you. Dean, you got questions for any of these candidates?
He always hands the mic to me when he wants a hard question or something like that. So, no. I think that one of the things that were brought up earlier was the fact that Jesse pointed out that we are, in all respect, debt-free in the county, which is an excellent job because I'm one of these people that like to avoid debt if we can. However, I do know there's a number of challenges that are facing Humphreys County in the coming years, particularly when it comes to financing schools. Ronnie brought that up a moment ago, how important that is. Looking at the school situation and the fact that the county is set for a large possible growth over the next few years, how do you see it impacting the school and the school budget, and how do you see preparing the county to address that subject? And we'll start with Marilyn.
Well, first of all, it is not the role of the county commission or the executive to tell the schools how much money they have to operate. We don't run the school system. The citizens elect school board members, and the school board members appoint a director. They form the budget that comes to us, and we look over the budget with a fine-tooth comb, and we either approve it or don't. I know there are going to be challenges, but like I said, we elect other people to come up with the budgets for the For the roads, we have a road supervisor. We have a sheriff who deals with all the law enforcement issues. And so we just have to look at what they bring to us and discern what's the best way to deal with the funds.
Ronnie, I'm going to skip down to you real quick. You come from a background with working with the school board and also working in the county commission, and Maryland has a great point. Y'all don't do the budget, you don't tell them how to spend it, but you do have to make sure that your part of the money is there, that pool is there for them to draw off of and to finance. How do you see the potential growth coming up over the next few years? How do you see that impacting those schools, and do you think that we can have the funds there we need for the expansion and investment in schools?
Well, as we look to the future, one example is we started talking about an elevator over in the courthouse, and it took us almost 8 years to get an elevator in the courthouse. We have been talking about infrastructure on roads and bridges. We've been talking about replacing the Duck River Bridge. It is in that system. It's in the process. But we still need the bridge replaced. And like Marilyn said, we don't tell Mr. Woods or Mr. Rollins where to spend that money. Our responsibility is to make sure that that percentage is there for them and they take care of it.
And Carl, same question. Basically, how do you see your role in addressing this issue?
Well, I know that everything in the county's needing money to come in to fund it, and they've got to set the budget. But it would be nice to have some more businesses and infrastructure coming in to increase the revenue that's coming in through sales tax and other opportunities, people working and spending their money here. And so I kind of want to see a more economic development coming in to negotiate with companies that are trying to leave other states to come to states that are more friendly towards them. They've been coming to Tennessee, but why can't we get them to Humphreys County?
Okay. Okay, guys, we appreciate your coming up, being a part of the candidates forum. We're going to set you free from the table for the moment and reset that table with the candidates from the 4th District, County Commission, 4th District candidates. If you're in the audience and those, I'll read those off. Tony Clark, Bobby R. Rich, Chris Dillinger, Danny Wagner. Any or all of you that are in the audience, make your way up onto the stage and we'll get started with the next round.
Thank you for the opportunity of this forum.
And thank you all for putting it on.
You're very welcome. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Yeah, welcome back to the WQMV News Democrat Candidates Forum, coming to you live here from the Waverly Central High School Auditorium in Waverly, Tennessee. In the process of our candidate forum, we are now making our way to the County Commission 4th District candidates. I'll read the candidates on the official ballot as they are. You've got Tony Clark, Bobby R. Rich, Chris L. Dillinger, and Danny Wagner are all the candidates on your ballot. We have 3 of those here with us. We've got Mr. Danny Wagner, who's an incumbent. We've got Mr. Chris Dillinger, who is an incumbent. And we've got Tony Clark as a challenger to this position. And what we're going to do is we'll start, as we have before, with the incumbent candidates. Danny Wagner, if you would, take just a couple of moments and introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you're about and so forth.
Thank you. My name is Danny Wagner, Commissioner for the 4th District here in Humphreys County, of course. I've been a lifelong resident of the 4th District. Most of my family has in the past as well. I've been married 38 years to my wife, Charlotte. I have 3 beautiful children. One is a school teacher here in the county. One is a mechanical engineer in an adjoining county. And one works at one of the plants here locally. I started serving in the county commission in 2013. I was appointed to fulfill a term where one of the commissioners moved, and I was fortunate for that. I ran for election in 2014. I was elected, and I I have learned a lot in that amount of time, I must say. I attend Pisgah United Methodist Church, where I've been a certified lay speaker for about 12 years now. An enjoyable job. I've also served as a mentor in the Tennessee Achieve, Tennessee Promise program for the last 3 years to help high school graduates make it through their first semesters in college, to help them get them through that hump when it's most discouraging for them at that time. It's a great program. It's a wonderful program. I urge everyone to try to sign up for that if you would like. There's more information on it. But it is an honor to serve the citizens of Humphreys County and the 4th District.
Thank you, Danny. We'll move down the other end of the table now to our other incumbent candidate, Mr. Chris Dillinger. Chris, if you would, lean into that mic and tell these good folks who you are and what you're about and so forth.
Yes, I am Chris Dillinger, County Commissioner in the 4th District. Lived here for 43 years in the 4th District. Married to my wife, Rhonda, 27 years. 5 children, 4 grandchildren. Work here locally in New Johnsonville. I'm a member of the Three Rivers Fellowship Baptist Church here in Waverly. Hope to continue to serve the 4th District. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Now we'll go to the middle of the table and introduce the challenging candidate, Mr. Tony Clark. Tony, if you would, tell this audience who you are and what you're about and so forth.
I'm Tony Clark. I've lived in Humphreys County for a little over 40 years. I moved here when I was a teenager, when the economy dropped in Michigan. I was originally born in Tennessee, but we moved to Michigan as kids, and when the economy dropped in the 70s, my dad and family moved back here, actually to Houston County for a year, and then my dad was offered a position in Humphreys County, and that brought us to Humphreys County. I've been here since July 1977. That's where I met my wife, Sharon. We've been married for 37 years, have 4 daughters. One lives in Maine, 2 lives in Texas, and 1 still lives here in Waverly. We homeschooled, but through that they've accomplished much, finished college. I have run a business here in Humphreys County. At one time I had 3 pizza locations. I worked for the business and then eventually bought the business, and within a few years increased the sales of those 3 locations by 2.5 times. At one point I had 24 people working for me, 5 full-time and the rest part-time. So I know what it's like to run a business and to be CEO, CFO, and everything in between, secretary and whatever else. So I also do financial, help people with finances and help them run budgets and get out of debt. I've helped several people that have accomplished that, and I've accomplished a lot in the years I've been here, and I appreciate Humphreys County. I love Humphreys County. I've been offered positions outside of Humphreys County and chose not to move. I didn't really want to locate. I've thought about it a few times and just never really wanted to leave. I like being here. So I decided that I would run for county government in order to be a help to the community and help it to grow and help it to be, I believe, more what it can be. I appreciate the men, these 2 men in my district that have served. They've done a good job. But I think I can help move the county forward, and that's they've done a good job of keeping out of debt. I think they should be commended for that effort, but I think we need to move forward. We need to make some changes, and I think maybe some changes that should have already been made, as most people have already shown that the county is going to grow, and I'm not sure we're ready for that, and I think maybe some things should have been done to make us ready for that, and I think there's some things that can be done in order to accomplish that in growth. But I think with my financial expertise and being able to look at things and solve problems, I think I can be an asset to the county.
Thank you, Tony. Dean, do you have a question? Well, as was stated a little earlier, and we sort of defined the position of a county commissioner a little bit earlier. We had a county commissioner define that for us. It's been elaborated on a couple of times, but I'd like to give you guys an opportunity to answer that same question. You're seeking a job as a county commissioner representing the 4th District. 2 of you are the incumbents, 1 of you is a challenger. You've all given us a little bit of background, a little bit of resume. I know that our 2 incumbents have both served 1 term. and they're seeking the second term in that same position. I want to ask them one at a time, please. What plans or what vision could you share with us on how things could be better on the county commission if you were elected to serve in that capacity again? Danny, I'll ask you first since we started.
Okay, first, how it would improve? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Do you have any plans or any kind of visions that you could share with us on how things could improve on the existing county commission?
We talked about several different things and growth that would be happening here in Humphreys County. A lot of times it's been mentioned that there will be challenges, and I don't like that word. I would rather think of it as opportunities for growth. Other counties around us have grown, as it was mentioned. Montgomery County, Dixon County, even Henry County has. They prepared ahead of time, and we are going to be preparing ahead of time as well. These things are going to happen. We need to look at the models that have been used before in business and in county government to prepare ahead of time. We know that when these things happen, our services will have to increase. County services, that means school, it means law enforcement, ambulance, education, and the ability to help these people get these jobs whenever they come in, to prepare them for it. That is part of what we do. We're elected officials, as you said earlier a moment ago, and our job is we are elected to listen to them, to see what the needs are. Many times we can't do anything about it. State has a lot of mandates about what we can and can't do, but we go to Mr. Wallace and we talk these things over with him, and he has the direction most of the time that we can always go, and he can take care of these things as we move forward.
Okay. Thank you, Danny. Chris, I'll let you answer basically that same question. What vision, or can you share a vision with us for, or a plan for how things you could make, or how you could make things a little better on the existing county commission, and why a voter would consider you to be the best choice there?
I think the biggest thing for the county right now, we've heard that we're out of debt, paid our bills and everything, but I think we need to buy some land somewhere in the county and prepare for the industry that's coming. I think just like Mr. Wallace and two or three others said, that it's bound to come in the next year or two, whenever it is, but I think we need to be prepared for that. And by buying that piece of industry, we've set the money aside to do that, and by doing that would be another step towards recruiting industry into Humphreys County. We need jobs here. We need more places to work for my kids and my grandkids and everybody else here in Humphreys County's kids. So by doing that, that's one of the first steps for that, and we did one of those by putting the money aside, and now we just need to find that land and purchase that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Tony, you mentioned just a minute ago that you felt like your addition to the county commission would bring somewhat of a change. You mentioned decisions that should have already been made. Could you elaborate on that just a little bit, or share your visions for how your addition to the county commission would make it better than it is today?
Sure, I'd be glad to. I think what's been talked about as far as the purchases and land, things like that, is a good idea, and I'm wondering if that we may be a little behind the 8 ball on that and should have already been done. I think in order to make a good, as far as the commission is concerned, we need to develop a good foundation which to build upon. And I'm concerned that foundation is not as strong as it should be as we move forward. And I think I'm the kind of person I can look at things and go from the ground up. I don't want to look at a structure of something and look at a government from the outside and just look at the facade. The facade looks good. I'm concerned about the foundation that's there, and I think we could look at that and provide a better working knowledge and better structure as far as building a better foundation. Looking at things to generate revenue, And like Mr. Dillinger said, bringing the jobs in, that would help generate some revenue. And also providing jobs for our county. I mentioned that I have 4 daughters, only one still in the county. The other 3 didn't come back. There was nothing really to come back to. It breaks my heart because my only grandson, is in Texas, and it'd been nice to have something for here for them to come back to a little better. But I understood, because of the situation, a lot of times family doesn't get back together. But I think I could provide a better look at things, and that's what I did when I had the pizza place. We looked at building the foundation, strengthening the foundation in order for the business to grow. And as I had, looked at it and did that, and working from the ground up.
Thank you, Tony. Dean, you got any questions to these gentlemen? Okay. Gentlemen, we appreciate you coming and being part of our forum. We're going to excuse you now and clear the table and make way for the candidates of the 5th District. And any of those candidates in the audience, if you're a candidate for County Commission 5th District, if you would make your way up to the top. I'll go ahead and read those for you. According to the ballot, it's Larry W. Johnson, Alan Jones Sr., Eddie Rochelle, Larry R. Smith, and Johnny Whitfield. To the WQMV and the News Democrat Candidates Forum, coming live from the Waverly Central High School Auditorium in Waverly, Tennessee. We welcome all our listeners, and you've still got time to get on by if you'd like to see part of this. Right now, we've worked our way into the District 5 County Commission race. We have on our panel of candidates the incumbent Eddie Rochelle. We've got a challenger, Johnny Whitfield, and a challenger, Larry Johnson. But before we get to them, I'll read the complete ballot that you'll find on your sample ballot is Larry Johnson, Alan Jones, Eddie Rochelle, Larry Smith, who is an incumbent, and Johnny Whitfield. But these are the 3 that are here with us today, and we'll want to hear them. And we'll start with our incumbent, Mr. Rochelle. If you would, Eddie, take just a couple of minutes and introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us who you are and what you're about and so forth.
Thank you, Ward. I'm Eddie Rochelle. I've lived here all my life. I've got a wife of 39 years, 2 children. We own a business out at Buffalo, which is a restaurant, and my intent with the county is to try to be as conservative with our money as we can be, having controlled growth and putting money where it needs to be, and not taking anything for granted.
Thank you, sir. If you would, we'll move right down the other end of the table, and we'll start with Johnny Whitfield. Johnny, if you would, approach that mic and tell us who you are and what you're about and so forth.
I'm Johnny Whitfield, candidate for 5th District Commissioner. I'd also like to thank you guys, Mr. Dean Duke and Ward Phillips, for having this forum today, and the folks here at WCHS for allowing us to use their facility here. I'm a lifelong resident of Waverly and Humphreys County, attended local schools as well as Freed-Hardeman University. I'm married to Shelley Jackson Whitfield. Together we have 6 children and 9 grandchildren. We live in the Bakerville community. I'm retired from the city of Waverly after 38 years, and I'm transportation director for the Humphreys County Board of Education.
Thank you, Johnny. Now on the other end of the table is Larry Johnson, challenging candidate for the 5th District County Commission seat. Larry, lean into that mic and tell us a little bit about you and what you're about.
I'm Larry Johnson, candidate for the 5th District. I am I've lived here all my life, currently work for the City of McCune, certified wastewater and water operator, and a part-time farmer.
Thank you, Larry. As always, I appreciate anybody who seeks these offices of elected officials. I have a great appreciation for anybody that seeks to fill those shoes, especially as I joked about a little while ago, you're not doing this for the money, so there's obviously some community pride and community service goes behind any and all of that. We've talked the other districts. We've mentioned the particular duties of the county commissioner. We've heard from several different people about what they think that job is. it all seems to be kind of uniform, so I don't want to be just terribly redundant, but at the same time, it's important for a voter when they consider casting their vote for anyone, that individual fully understand what they're running for and what the duties of that office are and what the restrictions of that office would be and so forth. So without asking you particularly a particular direct question, I'm going to ask each one of you, and we'll start as we have with all the rest of them with our incumbent, and that would be Mr. Rochelle. Eddie, if you would, you've given us a little bit of biographical information. Just in a couple of minutes or so, if you could just explain to people why in this particular case, in the 5th District, the voters are going to elect 2 out of a field of 5. Let everybody know why one of those 2 should be you, why you're best qualified to maintain the seat you now hold.
Well, number one, being in business for ourselves and knowing how to balance our books and stuff, and like I was saying about controlled growth a while ago, I've heard but the other people here earlier were talking about economic development and stuff, and you know, if you go out and you spend $15 million and you put it in people's laps to have to pay for it through tax base and it don't come, what's going to happen? Now, if you've got people wanting to come in here in the industry and stuff, if they've got a little thing called earnest money and are willing to put money up, whenever they come in and they put their money up, once they have got going and they've hired the people they said they were going to hire, and all the whole 9 yards of it, then they'll get their money back. There's no way that we can ever spend that kind of money not knowing the geographical layout where they want to be, whether it be on the river, the interstate, or whatever. We've also got to look at we've got a gym right off the interstate, 2 of them, Cuba Landing and the Waverly Linden exit. We're going to have to start taking care of what we've got before we start trying to move ahead.
Thank you, Eddie. Now, Larry, let's move down to you with a very similar question, in that you're seeking the job of a county commissioner. You're a challenging candidate. You've given us some biographical information, some resume-type information about you, but just very briefly, if you would, explain to this audience why those qualifications and why you're best suited to fill one of these 2 positions representing the 5th District on the County Commission.
Well, being a certified operator with the wastewater and water, I know Buffalo lagoon system probably is going to have to be increased. I would have some expertise in increasing the lagoon size and stuff like that. Just general knowledge of water and wastewater might help the board.
Thank you, Larry. Johnny, I'll ask you that same question. You're an opposing candidate here, seeking the 5th District seat, or one of the 2 seats in the 5th District on the County Commission. Take just a couple of minutes and let people know why your personal qualifications would make you a good choice for this office.
I have 35 years of hands-on experience as Public Works Director for the City of Waverly. We oversaw many projects, roads, bridges, infrastructure in Waverly. I also was on the Humphreys County School Board for 24 years. Oversaw many building projects. There's a need for many more, I know, too, but we always stayed in the black in both of those areas. I think we can help Humphreys County grow and always be mindful of the rural lifestyle that we're blessed to have here. We need safe communities and schools, local health care, good roads, and great county services. Those things will bring about economic growth if we can do that. And I'd just like to be a part of it.
Thank you, Johnny. Dean, you got any questions for these?
Normally I don't, but actually Mr. Rochelle mentioned something or alluded to something. I wanted to do a follow-up from all 3 of you. And Eddie, I'll start with you if you don't mind. You mentioned the idea of growth, but controlled growth. So that leads me to the question, how do you see the county commission controlling that growth? As we all know, we have a number of gated communities coming into the area now. Dixon is saying they are virtually saturated, so we know that growth is going to eventually move down I-40 our direction. How do you see that controlled growth, and how do you see the county commission playing a part in controlling that growth?
Yeah, like I was saying, you've got, we had a little look at for $15 million at the Procter & Gamble site to, if it was ever bought, and putting power, sewer, electricity back there to it. Now, if you control growth comes with, like I was talking about, earnest money. And you've got 18,500 people in this county that depend on their way of life, and they want a little bit more. But with that, if you don't have controlled growth and you build it and they don't come, now the people that's going to be responsible for it are the 18,500 people who are right in that area. So I don't want to jeopardize our citizens with that unless we've got, like I was talking about, a little bit of money up front, intent, and doing what they say they'll do. As time has gone by in years, you have seen industries come in here and come and go that have wanted tax breaks. They wanted all kinds of incentives, and when their tax breaks are gone, they leave. And then all of a sudden, you've got your infrastructure built. You've got homes built here. You've got the banks that have got all these liens on these homes and all this stuff, and people follow the jobs. So when they leave here, I don't want to see the 18,500 people jeopardized because of a bad mistake that we made as a whole.
Well, that's clear enough. Larry, same question to you. Obviously, we're on the verge of a lot of growth in Humphreys County, both industry and in residential. How do you see the county commission playing a part in controlling and making sure that growth doesn't overwhelm what we have at the moment?
Well, I think Eddie pretty much nailed it on the head there. We don't want to leave the citizens here with to have to foot the bill. You might get industry in here and get them incentive of maybe 5 years instead of a 20-year tax break. That way they would have to recoup. It would take more than 5 years for them to recoup coming here, so they would not be able to leave in 20 years.
Johnny, same question.
Oh, I believe we have the opportunity and the responsibility to try to bring industry growth and good paying jobs here to Humphreys County. I realize that our unemployment rate has gone down, and it has, but there are so many folks that drive 80 miles one way every day. They like to live here. We need some things here. And I think we have a responsibility to try.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate all three of you coming by and participating in the forum. And we're going to ask you to step down from the table now and make room for the candidates from the 6th District County Commission race. I'll read those off. Larry G. Arnold, Terry Coleman, and Larry Mayberry. Any or all of y'all are in the audience, please make your way to the stage. And if we would, we'll go ahead and include this 7th District along with them. And the 7th District is an unopposed race between the two incumbents. Ricky Hooper, who I know is here, he's going to make his way up on the top, and John Hurt.
And you're listening to WQMV, AM 1060 and 93.5 FM. We'll be back with our final group of County Commissioner candidates and close out things for the day. Thank you for listening to the home of classic rock and roll.
MV and News Democrat candidate forum.
It was pretty.
Coming live from the Waverly Central High School Auditorium in Waverly, Tennessee. We now have on our panel of candidates well, actually we've got 2 districts represented. We've got the District 6 County Commission candidates. We've got the two incumbents, Larry Mayberry and Terry Coleman, are with us, and the challenging candidate is Larry Arnold. He's here with us. We've also got on the table in the 7th District County Commission the incumbent Ricky Hooper, also the incumbent John Hurt, but he's not here today, so we brought Ricky up here to fill out our table to do that. So he's unopposed, but we're going to give him a few minutes. In fact, let's just start with him, because I know he's a little anxious, and we've got him sitting on the end and in the curtains as well. So Ricky Hooper, if you would, share that mic right there and just tell folks a little bit about who you are and what you're about and so forth.
My name's Ricky Hooper. I'm from the 7th District, lifelong resident north of McEwen. Been on the court 2 terms. This will be our 3rd term. Really proud of the accomplishments of the last 8 years. I'm proud to be from a place that's out of debt and the lowest tax rate in the country, and not going to apologize for that to nobody. And we can do better, and we have great plans to do better. We have a lot of jobs, a lot of job opportunities. There are a lot of job openings in Humphreys County right now that we need the education for those people to fill those jobs in a technical aspect. The jobs have changed. We need this college expansion. We need these. It's just, I know where I work, we're having trouble finding those qualified people that's ready to hit the door running. So I'd like to see that come to pass. And he's talking about what does a county commissioner do. We control the purse strings. That's the thing. And we try to make informed decisions. We try to take care of the people's money and do it the best we can. And I'm just proud to be a part of that group. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky, and we appreciate you coming out and being a part. As I mentioned before, I know that you're unopposed in your race, so I'll just go ahead and congratulate you on the win. It's not hard at all to call that one. So
it's in your remembrance to show up and vote.
Yeah, do go vote, Ricky. Yeah, but thank you for coming, Ricky. We appreciate that. And now on the table, we've got, as we mentioned before, we've got 3 of the District 6 County Commission candidates with us. And as we've done in previous, we're going to start with the incumbents. Down on the very end, we've got incumbent Larry Mayberry. Larry, if you would, grab that microphone and tell us just a little bit about who you are and what you're about and so forth.
Thank you, Ward. Dean, for having me here. My name's Larry Mayberry. I'm a 5th generation Humphreys Countyan. Lived in McEwen most of my life. My wife, Diane, who's in the audience out there, and I will celebrate our 53rd wedding anniversary this year, if we make it to September. It looks like we will.
That's a song, you know.
Yeah. We have two great children, a son and a daughter who also live in McEwen. And we have a grandson, a very millennial grandson. And we have a granddaughter, a beautiful granddaughter who just graduated from nursing school at UT Martin a few weeks ago. And I'm very blessed that they all live in the McEwen area, so we're pretty close. I've been a community banker here in Humphreys County for almost 50 years. And I'm seeking my third term as a commissioner from the 6th District.
Thank you, Larry. We appreciate that. We'll move right down the table to our center spot, and that's the incumbent commissioner, Terry Coleman. Terry, if you would, grab that mic, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're about and so forth.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank you and Dean for hosting this event, and thank everyone for coming. It's been an honor to serve the 6th District and the people of Humphreys County. My wife, Joni, and I live on Hurricane Creek. We have 2 married daughters who also live in McEwen. I've been a teacher and a coach and a principal for 47 years in Humphreys County. For many years during the summertime, I ran a summer youth program for Mid-Cumberland and employed hundreds of youth over the years in summer jobs. I'm currently principal at McEwen Junior High School, and I've been on the commission for 6 years, 6.5 years. I serve on the Public Works and Safety Committee and currently serve on the 911 board. Kind of like Ricky said, I'm just so proud to be a part of the Humphreys County Commission that has served its citizens. I have a county that with no debt. When you tell that out at meetings, it's unheard of. And so that's something I think our county can be very proud of and still have a very low, one of the lowest in the country, tax rates.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. If you would slide the mic down to our challenging candidate, that's Larry Arnold. Larry, thank you for coming. If you would, raise up to the mic there and tell us who you are and what you're about and so forth.
Okay. I'm Larry Arnold, District 6, running for County Commissioner. I'm not a lifelong resident of Humphreys County. My wife, of 22 years and 204 days, has been a lifelong resident. I do love Humphreys County. Now that I've lived here 24 years, I moved out of Nashville to Humphreys County, and it's a beautiful place to be. I look forward to making the right decisions on where the citizens' monies go to and what it funds. And I look forward to that.
Thank you, Larry. Dean, do you have any questions at the time for these? All mine? Okay. Well, again, we're about to wrap this up on our county commission. Yeah, getting a little cheers off of that. So I'm not going to go back over these same questions over and over and over again. Yay. I think it's been well defined what the job of a county commissioner is, and I trust that all 3 of you gentlemen share that that same definition, probably 100%. But anyway, it is a contested race, and the voters that you're seeking to have aligned with you are going to want to know why should they vote for you as opposed to the other fella. And without getting any kind of personal thing, obviously, I'll give you the same opportunity we've given everybody else, and we'll kind of go backwards on this one. I'll come back to Larry as the challenging candidate. And Larry, if you would just take a couple of minutes and explain to a voter out there why you are the best choice to make to fill one of the 2 seats representing District 6.
Okay, thank you, Ward. Well, first of all, I have obviously a very keen interest in Humphreys County since all of my family are here. It's just when I make decisions, I think about the citizens and I think about how it will affect my children and my grandchildren growing up, and try to make those decisions. I would ask the voters of the 6th District to vote for me because of my long tenure in public service in Humphreys County. I'm a former board member of the Board of Aldermen of the City of McEwen. I'm a former mayor of the City of McEwen. I have served as a commissioner of insurance and commerce under Governors McWhorter and Sundquist. I've been active in United Way here in Humphreys County. I'm active in our electric co-op, which is making some strides. We heard several people mention broadband. We've been instrumental in making some strides to see that broadband is covered all over this county, and that's going to be an ongoing thing. So I think, Ward, just my involvement in the community, my 50 years or so experience in finance, I would appreciate their vote.
Thank you, Larry. Moving right down the table, Terry, if you would, take that same question. Let the voters of the 6th District know why your qualifications make you the best choice for one of those seats.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm quite honored to serve. I don't mind asking questions. Jesse can avow to that. I don't know everything. There's a lot to the commission that I didn't understand, and I think anybody that gets on it don't understand. We're somewhat limited in what we can do. The school board runs schools. The transportation department runs transportation. I do think the commission, the current commission, which I proudly serve on, as I've mentioned, has been very judicious with the county's money. No debt. We are working currently for growth. McEwen is looking, trying to add the economic development, trying to add land to the industrial park, trying to get jobs there, plant. We do have $500,000 placed in the budget to add to a site, industrial site for the county. So as we look towards growth, nobody can predict the future, but we do know it's going to happen. So we can prepare with infrastructure improvements, school improvements, and those things. So thank you for...
Thank you, Terry. And we'll continue on down there. Larry Arnold, if you would, I'll give you the same question or the same opportunity to explain to the voters of the 6th District why the qualifications that you have in the resume of your life or so forth make you the best candidate, the most qualified candidate to fill one of those two seats on the county commission.
Okay. I'm a recent graduate from Austin Peay with a business degree. I've been in construction 40 years. I was superintendent over the community college when it was built. I was over Andy Dotson's warehouse, Kevin Hanley's warehouse. I've been over some large projects, and they all came in under budget before time. I work well with teams is what I do. I work good with teams of people, and to me that's what it seems like a county commissioner is going to have to do. Work within a team, come up with a good plan that everybody agrees on. I think a new, fresh view, a new perspective on how to govern this county could do the county some good. It could. It's just like when you replace a coach on a team, it seems like everything just goes wide open. Everything improves because it's a new perspective, a new look. And that's what I hope to bring to the county commissioner's seat. The job I do right now, I'm actually a project estimator. 2 weeks ago, I did the estimate on the tower number 2 in Manhattan, New York. My part was $2.2 million. So I'm used to large money. I'm used to money. I'm used to the construction. I'm used to the teamwork. I'm a hard worker. And I think my fresh new views and perspective could do Humphreys County a lot of good.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. And on behalf of Dean Duke and myself, we thank all three of you for coming and being a part. And Dean, do you have any questions for these?
No. I just want to thank you very much for being here today. I want to thank all the candidates for being here today and taking the time out of their Saturday to be with us. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in today and to listening to this event. Someone asked me the other day, why do you want to do something like this? And I said, well, it keeps Ward and I out of trouble when we do things like this. But the reason why is because it's important for you to remember that voting is going on right now. The election is coming up. Election day is August the 2nd. Early voting going on now, and your opportunity to make a difference in your community, to be a part of making sure that Humphreys County continues to grow and do well, that it has a place for your children, happens when you walk in and vote. And that's why we do things like this, because it's good for you to understand your candidates, to get to know them. And we appreciate very much our sponsors that made it very possible for us to do this. With that said, on behalf of Ward Phillips, thank you very much. Appreciate you helping us out today. And take care and have a great day.